Welcome back to the Brent and Austen Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
Hey, we welcome you back. Jaguars preseason game coming up Friday night. That game will be on Fox 30. The first two have been on CBS 47, so we'll be in Atlanta Thursday evening into Friday. Busy week around here. We've got Jaguars All Access tomorrow at Strings Sports Brewery in Springfield. We plan to be live with our show tomorrow at Strings, 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. So come on out for lunch, come on out for dinner, just spend the day at Strings. A couple of different opportunities. Normally, Jaguars All Access will be on Thursdays during the season, but we kick it off with this Wednesday show. We then take a week off with Access, and then it starts in full on September 5th. Then on September 9th, from String Sports Brewery this year. On Mondays, we're going to have Jags Report live. So Monday, Thursday shows, working on the guest list. We know we have folks like Christian Kirk and Foye Oluwakin and Evan Ingram confirmed and still working on some dates, and many more still to come. So that's just a little bit of a sample of what's happening this week. Friday Night Blitz starts this week, full go week 1. For Northeast Florida, and it's actually week 2 in Georgia. So a lot happening right now, as expected. Camp is broken for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are now on a normal week schedule. And Doug Peterson did confirm yesterday, first half basically for the starters. He wants to see those guys play. We talked a bit about that yesterday. He's going to hold Christian Kirk out, so that calf, he's not going to mess around with it. It feels like, again, we've talked to Doug a little bit off camera on these production meetings. It feels like he was not alarmed by the injury. I think he just wants to say, hey, why even risk it? Let's get to September 8th. I feel the same way with Armstead. I would be surprised if you see Armstead on Friday night. But I think he's also going to ramp up a little bit in practice this week, according to Doug.
Are you kind of at ease a little bit with Christian Kirk? Because we've seen the emergence now of Parker Washington. Like, not saying Parker Washington's Christian Kirk by any means, but, you know, and nothing against Christian Kirk at all, knock on wood, hopefully he has a healthy season. But I feel like if I was going to pick one player on offense who I was worried about to maybe not go the entire 17-game season, I would probably pick Christian Kirk at this point. And if that's the case, I feel pretty confident having Parker Washington in there for him.
It's a great call, and I think that's a little bit the Jags have been pretty good, knock on wood, right, with injuries. So, but I think you're right. I don't – it's always a hard conversation. It's like, oh, can they do that? Well, what we learned last year, at times, it felt like the Jags couldn't live without Zay Jones for their offense to click. And then really what happened is they couldn't live without either Trevor practicing or Christian Kirk not on the field for the last 6 weeks. Because they didn't win games. So it's a fair question. And then when you have the emergence of a player like Parker Washington, I think it's not just a Christian Kirk thing. I wonder, because they're moving him around, do you feel some confidence that if somebody were to go down for a week or two, you don't want to lose any of these guys for a long period of time. That's significant. But if they were to go down for a week or two, does the addition of Parker Washington being on the field put you at ease in general, but specifically from that spot, because that's his primary spot, running out of the slot? I get what you're saying. I think, is probably the answer. I think it's a dangerous place to get to, though, because I think Kirk is so good. I don't want to diminish how good he is. I think he's so good, and I think the nuanced stuff and the chemistry stuff of Christian Kirk and Trevor Lawrence, and just for a reference here, I won't say it will be as good, but to me, it has the ability to be Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey-like. And when I say that, it might not even be, well, production probably be similar.
Yeah.
I say that if you talk to anybody about Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and the Chiefs, what they're going to tell you is they don't even run plays sometimes. Like, they're not real plays. When he catches the ball, he's in a spot that like a route wouldn't be at. He just has tremendous feel, and their chemistry and how they're in sync is so good that they know where they're going to be and backyard football it. Do we get to that point in year 3 with maybe even Ingram, but specifically Kirk and Trevor, where you can break off stuff? You were talking about the option routes. Like, you are on the same page where you're not going to misconnect.
Yeah,
I think you have the ability to do that with these two guys. So that's where the Parker Washington stuff will not be. That relationship isn't close to what Kirk and Trevor is.
No, not even close. But I don't know. I look at Puka Nacua, who was a rookie and had to step up when Cooper Kupp goes down.
And did it.
And they did it with him.
Yeah.
And he seemed to fit right in. And now I'm not sure like how many option routes they had and everything of like Puka goes go do your own thing, but that dude was open 9 times out of 10. So I understand what you're saying. Like chemistry means something, comfortability means something, and I don't think anybody's more comfortable at a wide receiver than Trevor Lawrence is with Christian Kirk and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I agree with that. But I'm just saying, and I don't want anybody to go down, but if Parker Washington had to fill in right now, I think we're all confident to say he could fill in a role and they probably wouldn't miss too much.
I never liked this kind of topic, so I'll spin it a different way. It's like, hey, who can't you afford to lose? I think
we're talking backup quarterbacks all the time, Brent. Like,
I know.
like they matter, you know? Unless somebody gets hurt. Unless somebody gets hurt.
That's true.
So here we are.
People do get hurt, though, right?
Yeah, so we're talking backup wide receivers. It's all good.
And but if you do identify their offense, and I would say relationship-wise, I don't think there's a better chemistry player with Trevor than Kirk. I think Ingram's pretty close now, what we've seen. I think you'd have to say that based on production alone. But from a schematic standpoint, forget about relationship standpoint, schematically, who is Brian Thomas the guy they can't do anything about? Is it ETN that they can't miss? Is it Ingram, who does stuff that nobody else does on their football team?
You're saying, like, what's one player they can't afford to go out?
Yeah.
I mean, because you could make an argument for ETN, because even though we're seeing Tank Bigsby, flash a little bit more, no one can do what Travis Etienne can do on this team. Nobody can really do what Evan Ingram can do. At least what we've seen so far, no one can do what Evan Ingram can do on this team. But I think sometimes Evan Ingram was so relied upon because the wide receiver depth wasn't there, and you had no choice. And no, I'm not going to sell Evan Ingram off by any means, but if you're asking me the one player that they can't afford to have out, I still lead ETN.
Yeah, I kind of do too. You just brought something up. I don't know where I was thinking of this morning or last night, and I was like, forget who actually triggered this in my mind. I think it was somebody on the defensive end. I think it was Armstead that I was thinking about, like, if he was going to play or how they're going to use him. And I've kind of asked, like, who takes his spot? Like, do they have somebody that takes his spot if he doesn't go? And I don't know if you have an answer to that. I don't think he does. What they're going to ask him to do, probably rush from the inside, rush from the outside. For somebody to take his spot, it would probably be Trayvon.
Yeah.
That's going to be the guy that does that has the ability to do that. Mm-hmm. So then I start thinking, Austin, a little bit about the kind of the build of this football team. And so much we talk about it at the quarterback position. Let's say Lamar Jackson. He's a unicorn. I mean, when you play Lamar, you don't really have much sample size. I think Mahomes has made himself into a unicorn a little bit with the way the unscheduled plays is just something you can't practice. Yeah. Kelsey and that relationship, something you can't practice. Like, you could be in the right spot by your rules, and it still doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. I almost think for Kelsey, you should just box and one the guy. The old basketball thing, and just shadow him everywhere he goes. So even if he does break off the route and go, so what? You should be on him. Don't follow your rules.
No, for sure. But then, if you box and one of them, deep threat could be open a little bit as well. But
there's reason. Listen, I'm not a guy. They would have figured that out if they thought they could do that, right?
No, for sure.
But you go back in time, Gronk, he was a unicorn. Tyreek Hill, he's a unicorn. I'm not telling you that the Jags have unicorns necessarily, but I think they have guys that are tough to replace. And they might have more of those guys than we've seen in a long time. You take the quarterback position out when you have this conversation, because most teams don't want to. If you miss the quarterback, you're in trouble. Even in today's day, even if you think you have a good backup. But if you go on the defensive side, like if they take Armstead and even maybe what they ask of Trayvon, but definitely Armstead right now out, I don't know if they have the replacement.
But see, I think every decent to good team has these problems, though.
No, this is a good thing. This is a good conversation.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I think that you can do this in every team, though. In the NFL.
Yeah, but you haven't been able to do it in Jacksonville very often, is my point.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, I think you have guys that you really, they do stuff different. I'm not sure if Foyer does stuff different, but he does it so well over these last 4 or 5 years that do you have the guy that can do that at his level? Probably not. Like you said, ETN. I do think he's a little bit. I don't think everybody has an ETN. I think
in the league, correct?
Yeah, I think there are a handful of teams that have ETN, but I don't think everybody does. Mm-hmm. I think Ingram is one of these guys. If they do take Ingram off the field, they don't have a guy, and not many people have that matchup around the league.
Between like a legit tight end.
Well,
or like what do you say? What do you say a matchup?
Well,
like size.
Yeah, so speed and size.
Okay.
Where he's basically a big wide receiver.
Sure.
Right? Mm-hmm. He might not get him in the blocking game, totally different than a Hawkinson or somebody else, but they have a matchup problem with him, and not a lot of. I think that's why they've gone to him so many times in these last couple of years. So again, this isn't necessarily relative to other teams. Kansas City might have a few of these. Pittsburgh Steelers might have a few of these. I'm just telling you, over the years, it doesn't feel like the Jags have had a lot of these.
Gotcha.
And I feel like they do. I think Ingram, ETN, Foye was probably a little bit of a stretch, but Armstead might be that guy. Heck, what they asked Trayvon Walker to do might be that guy, depending on what they asked him to do this year. Even just to have 3 or 4 of those guys, that says something about the construction of your team. That you have guys that it's almost hard to duplicate what they're doing, not just here in Jacksonville, but maybe around the National Football League. There's only a few teams that could do it.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austin Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jax 24/7 network.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austin Show. TIA, I said TIA, Everbank Stadium. Hello, looking great. Gonna be kind of untouched and unkempt for a while, as the Jaguars will be starting off on the road week 1 against Miami. And this weekend we'll be playing in Atlanta against a pretty good Falcons team, I think one would say. I mean, you've had a lot of key pieces. You have Kirk Cousins in all his glory, set aside from his playlist. I can't wait to get Jason Hamby's thoughts about the Kirk Cousins playlist, because this guy, more than anybody that I know, will go to bat for Kirk Cousins. And I think if you look at the numbers, yeah, Cousins had a pretty damn good career, right? Had some injuries, played with some hell of talent when it comes to the wide receiver position. And one would think now that he finds himself in a great situation, despite who they drafted in the first round in Michael Penix, but still a great situation nonetheless, where they could have some success. I'm not sure if it's been revealed yet how much the Falcons will be playing, but you have a team that's has some receivers. They have a pretty solid running game, a pretty good defense. It could be a good challenge for the Jaguars. And I think it's a team that you want to see some ones versus ones, especially for the first half.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the guy that I'm pretty interested to see this week is Darnell Savage. Mm-hmm. He's back out there too, and part of it. And where does he fit? Where do they play him?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, that's a link that I still don't know exactly where they're going to fit it in. I mean, you get ideas, but we'll see. So that secondary against that offense, again, there's a lot to measure against. I think with the Falcons, but also maybe going into week 1 against Miami. I think Atlanta has a lot of parts, kind of like that, where they got some matchups. They're going to test you. Now, I don't think anybody has the speed dynamic of Miami necessarily on offense.
Yeah.
But the weaponry is there. So it might be a nice test to get the Falcons the way they're built on both sides of the ball going into a game like the Miami Dolphins. So here we go, man. We're getting there now. I mean, camp is officially broken. And with camp breaking, I thought about this. I think there are some easy answers, but maybe it's not as easy as I think. The star of training camp, from everything you read, saw, who's the star of the month, in your opinion, from the Jags?
Of training camp?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to go Parker Washington.
Yeah, I think is it that easy?
I mean, to me it is. Yeah.
That's what I was kind of thinking, too.
Mm-hmm. But once again, I mean, it's exciting, right? Because it's the wide receiver spot. So it sticks out. Like, maybe you could say Terrell Edmonds, for his preseason games. But, I mean, I just think of what we've seen so far and the excitement. You got to go Parker Washington.
Maybe I could phrase it a little bit different, because I think you're probably – I mean, it's hard not to go Parker here. So maybe I phrase it a little bit different. Who did the most for themselves this camp? And I'll give you a couple names.
Okay.
To let you think about it. This is what comes to mind. Parker star, sure. Parker probably did the most for himself, too. He probably tried to get him on the field. Absolutely. I think Tank Bigsby has done a lot for himself this month, these last couple of games. I think he needed it. I think we talked about it. He needed to check some boxes. He needed things to go well. He needed people saying good things about him. He needed people believing in him again. And again, how much he needed that, I don't know. I'm not in his head. But the bottom line is people need that in general. You don't want to sit there and just take all the bullets, all the time. He needed some positive things to happen to kind of get back to everybody thinking again, like, hey, he can really help this thing out. And I think here on August 20th, we're all sitting here like he can help things out. And I think they believe it in the building. I think we believe it outside the building. I think another guy that's interesting in this realm is Chad Muma. And I don't know where he needed it or anything like that, but I'm thinking Chad Muma's played well enough. You're talking about him a bunch. You did it yesterday again, where it's like, okay, does he fit in? Where does he fit in? How good is it to have him on the field? Do you eventually have to get him on the field even a little bit more? I really think Muma has helped himself quite a bit in the last couple of weeks. So those are two guys that jump out to me, where you're still trying to find a guy like Brenton Strange to help himself out, as mentioned yesterday with your players to watch.
Yeah.
Or even some of those defensive linemen that I think, they've popped here or there, the depth guys, but have they done enough to be like, hey, here I am?
True. I mean, and those are good examples. I still lean towards Parker Washington because you mentioned Tank Bigsby. Yes, the guy has gotten a lot better. And he shows promise of he is who he is who we thought he was. But you look at where he was drafted, it's like, well, but of course, like you have to be that guy. When we look at Chad Muma, third year. Once again, it's, well, yeah. I mean, look where you were drafted. Like we're expecting you to try to make these leaps. I look at Parker Washington, and this is kind of more of the Tank Bigsby thing as well, where. And Doug Peterson alluded to this, the most cliched thing in football. You make your biggest improvements from year one, year two. I didn't expect Parker Washington to be where he is with a 6th-round pick.
Yeah.
And we've had this conversation many times on the show where it's like, hey, Trent Baalke, despite all the free agent signings, despite how you've done well in the first round, despite having your franchise quarterback here and all the transactions, everything like that, where's your gem?
Yeah.
Where's the guy in deep rounds where you can go and said, I scouted him. I found him. He's a Jacksonville Jaguar. Nobody else wanted him, and now he's ours. Where's that guy? Because we haven't had that guy. Parker Washington, going into year one, year two, is starting to maybe look like he has some of the characteristics of that guy.
Yeah, it's a really Parker Washington could mean a lot of things and do a lot of things. And to your point there, it's a little unsuspecting. It's a bit surprising. Because when we think of the Jags, like, hey, you're all set. You got Kirk, you got Ingram, you got Trevor, you got ETN, you add Gabe Davis, you add Brian Thomas Jr. That's where all the eyes are at. But this has been like, whoa, we didn't see that. To that point of Tank Bigsby, you're like, okay, kind of need that guy to take a step. Looking for Brenton Strange, take a step. Chad Muma, hey, it's time, like, take a step. I'll give you another guy that you had no idea that would be part of this picture that looks like he's part of the picture is Christian Braswell. I mean, if you ask, if a player that's done more for themselves in the last month, I mean, again, all these guys that we just mentioned probably fit, but Christian Braswell might be near the top. Like, I mean, even the conversation. I think you're starting to think from an outside standpoint coming into this camp, Christian Braswell's a guy like, well, maybe he makes a team. If not, he'll go on the practice squad.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still in this depth chart for 3 weeks in a row now. Is listed as a number one nickel corner. I'm not sure I fully believe that, but he's obviously done a lot of things to draw the praise of the coaches, earn the trust of the coaches, and he could be another one of these finds. I mean, you could go from none of the gem category to maybe a couple if Braswell can get on the field and play and contribute the way he's done so far. Keep this in mind now. I think there's a big step between contributing right now and contributing in the regular season. That is a major step to take still. So I don't like to get carried away with a player doing too much this time of year. We've seen it kind of blow up and go the opposite way sometimes. And keep this in mind. Those guys are getting more opportunities this time because they're there. They're available. The starters aren't in. There's not as many reps, so you're able to see them. You might not get as big of a sample size coming up in the regular season. Parker fits there. How are they going to get him on the field? How many snaps can he get? Can he be productive in the limited snaps that he will get this season? So, I think there's a lot of ways to go, but that's a good thing. If we can list 3, 4, 5 different guys, we have varying opinions on who helped themselves the most.
Yeah.
That's better than having nobody to pick from.
No, it definitely is. Let me ask you this. And, Doug Peterson alluded to it a little bit, where you make the most progress, you get better as a player the most from year 1 to year 2. When we've seen guys like Devin Lloyd, when we've seen guys like Brenton Strange so far in camp, and once again, maybe they're seeing a lot more practice than we're seeing at practice with Brenton Strange, but in the preseason games, we haven't really seen a lot. Does it make you a little nervous then when some of these guys, whether they're going to year 3 or year 2, but they haven't really popped, at least for us, does that make you nervous? Or do you think that they need more time to acclimate?
Yeah, I don't know the time. We did this a little bit with like Daniel Jones, right? Like if Hamby's going to tell me like 95% is gone, it's like, okay, I no longer believe in the 5%. Like I wouldn't believe in that.
With Tank, it looks like he looks better. He looks more confident. The vision's there. The cutbacks are there. Like Tank looks like he's figuring it out now.
Yeah, and also I think you can go back to Tank stuff and you can see where like the genesis of those issues came from. They were goofy. A lot of the stuff was goofy, so you can pinpoint it. To your point about Brenton Strange, I don't know when that clicks in. I don't know in both ways. I don't know when it's supposed to click in for him to produce, although sooner the better in today's world.
Yeah.
I don't know when the panic sets in of, okay, this was a miss. Like I'm not sure what the time frame of that is, but I will say that over time, when you've tried to give people time, and let's give you a few examples that jump out of my head. Luke Jokel played all the time. Like, okay, maybe he'll figure it out. Maybe he'll figure it out. Maybe he'll figure it out. Never figured it out. Mm-hmm. Taven Bryan, maybe he'll figure it out. Maybe he'll figure it out. Maybe he'll figure it out. Never figured it out. Like he had plenty of opportunities to figure it out. And it didn't work out that way. And I just had somebody else in my mind, and now I just lost it. Somewhat of a recent member. Caleb Von Chason. Maybe he'll figure it out. Maybe he'll figure it out. 4 years. He didn't figure it out. Like he was who he was. They determined they could still use him on special teams and stuff, but he wasn't the 20th overall pick.
Yep.
Heck, he wasn't the 120th overall pick. Might not have been the 220th overall pick. So, like, I don't know when that sets in, but the bottom line is I think Brenton Strange is going to get a chance to do that. And you know how I feel about the Strange one. It's like, can Doug help that? Mm-hmm. Can Doug kind of help produce that? Or how much of that is on Brenton Strange to emerge so they trust him to do stuff? It was a little bit of an interesting, recently I heard a conversation like, hey, he's picking up the offense. Like you can tell he's more comfortable with the offense and everything else. So you wondered if there was a little bit of a learning curve that he wasn't fully confident in, all there in. Mm-hmm. You never know that part. And by the way, when you say that in front of a microphone, I always hesitate to say anything like that in front of microphones because what people, the connotation there is, he's dumb and he's not going to get it. Mm-hmm. That's not it. I just think maybe it's a system in college that you have that takes you a little bit more time to acclimate to at the NFL level. Maybe I don't think any of this offense and defense for the Jags that they currently run are super simple. I think conceptually it's a little bit more complex.
Sure.
So guys come along at different ways. Now, how do you speed that up? How do you get that fast? I don't know. I'm not sure what it means. I'm just telling you, if he wasn't fully confident in what he was doing, playing fast, all those kind of things, you're not going to emerge. If he knows it better now, if he feels better in it now, does that help? Might even help a guy like Tank from that vantage point. So I think it was Tank did Tank whiff on a block the other day? I think he did.
Okay. Was it the sack?
It was.
I think it was the sack. Yeah. Basically a clean release on a blitz.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's just a missed block, Austin, or if that's
it was
just a conceptual thing, like I'm not in the right spot or reading the right way or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, basically he just kind of whiffed, and I believe that led to the sack, if I'm not mistaken. He was on the left side.
He was on the left side.
Yeah.
Etienne had one of those earlier, too. Remember on the Trevor 4th and 5 where we said, hey, you should have got rid of the ball anyway?
But I remember
Etienne missed on it.
I remember watching that play thinking, like, especially because I think it was 3rd and long. Or 3rd and some distance.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I remember thinking, like, that's not ideal by Tank. You got to do better. But also, theoretically, how many third and long situations will Tank Bigsby be out there?
Probably not.
Usually that's where you want Travis Etienne. His, obviously, I think the pass catching abilities out of the backfield, you probably won't see Tank in too many of those situations.
Still, probably one of the most underappreciated elements, I think, of offense is the ability to pick up blitzes from the back. The pass protection from the back.
It's a mindset.
And even Etienne has evolved in that. They weren't comfortable with him doing that in his first year, well, his second year, but him out there. And I forget who they had that they would put in instead on third downs, but they put a veteran guy in or somebody else in. They weren't comfortable with him doing it. Yep. But he's evolved to the point where he can be that 3-down back now. They're more confident in him picking up those blitzes, things like that. So, and I always say this about Maurice Jones-Drew. People had told me this about Maurice Jones-Drew. Might have been like one of his best attributes as a player. But nobody stats it up. Nobody understands it, recognizes it. It's a very valuable piece. And obviously one of his highlights was Merriman. Blowing him up, right?
Of course.
So I always think that stuff about football is fascinating. And it's probably one of the most hidden things in the sport is third down pass pro from a running back.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if you ask coaches that, if you list it. Like, hey, here's what people don't talk about ever. There's probably some more because we don't talk about it.
And it's so key, especially when a team's blitzing, that they send 5. Like, you got to pick up somebody. And if you don't, you see the after effects of it.
I think a fun storyline this camp, and we haven't spent a lot of time talking about it, is Cam Little. And I know it's a kicker, and we take kickers for granted. But I think people are falling in love with this guy a little bit because they see the leg. It's hard not to notice the leg. But he's also making kicks. He had actually the really good kickoff that resulted in a safety too. He's making kicks. Talk about a player who hasn't, I don't know if it's a player that did more for himself because he was probably going to get the job even if he was halfway decent.
Oh, he was drafted. He better have got the job, yeah.
But I would put him on a list of players that have helped Doug Peterson sleep at night the most over the last month. Like, this has been a problem in Jackson.
Oh, it's been a curse.
It's been unbelievable.
It's been a curse.
And I think Cam Little has helped. At least if you're a coach right now, you're like, whoa, we can try 62-yarders, 65-yarders.
Yeah.
You still better make the 42 and the 45 and the others. And he is. But I think we can trot somebody. I heard them on the sideline say the other day in the 2-minute, or maybe it was when they got the ball back. I think it was when they got the ball back after the punt and they had it with 33 seconds. I think their goal was to get to the 44.
Yeah.
Which means like, hey, and they got the ball at like the 43 of their own. So get to the 44, all they had to do is pick up like 13 yards. And they felt good about where they were at. Nice little weapon to have.
Beautiful
I think
weapon.
that's something that's emerged for the Jaguars here. So yesterday, about Roy Robertson Harris, Doug said this. Roy's been doing a really good job. He missed a lot of springtime with his injury. Again, it takes some time. Just learn the techniques, learn the details of the defense. But he's been doing a great job. He's going to be an impact player for us. Just continue to grow in the defense. Consistency, not only by Roy, but by everybody. Continue to show that he's one of the mainstays on that interior line.
Okay.
Again, it's been wild.
Now ask about Cooper Hodges next.
In what respect?
Did you watch the game?
Yeah, I know. Not as good, right?
Yeah.
Probably for the first time, we saw Cooper Hodges look like a 7th-round pick.
Sure.
And not like the guy that they've been really high on.
Yeah.
And now he actually had some good moments in the game, too, I think, but he also had some really bad moments.
That is correct. Yes.
And he's been bouncing around between right and left guard. I wonder if that's got him spinning a little bit.
I mean, maybe, but I feel like if you're a depth guard, I'm going to need you to play both positions, sir. Like,
probably.
Both sides.
But, he is a guy that never played guard before he got to the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, he was just he just played tackle in college and high school at Baker County. So, but the Roy Robertson Harris stuff, see that, when I saw that from Doug, I was like, when he says he's going to be an impact player for us, I'm like, okay, there's not a bigger story here. I don't think.
Okay, but let me ask you this. Are you going to be watching the reps against the Falcons?
I don't think I'm going to watch it.
Oh, because I think it can tell something. No?
Well, I think what these guys are doing, I mean, unless they're just lying to us, I think they're putting us at ease on that front. Like, okay, Nielsen just said, don't read into it.
Not going to
Doug just said, impact, Like he's going to be an impact guy.
Okay,
if you think he's going to be an impact guy, he's going to be in your rotation.
Okay, that's fine, but it's not like Roy Robertson Harris is a second-year, third-year guy. The guy's been around for a while, and here we have Eric Armstead saying, Rust? We're good.
Yeah,
we're good. Hey, man, why? What? Rust, man, we got you underneath the cover. We'll bring that car out when the season starts, right? We'll get you in the sunshine. We ain't worried about no rust. But here with Roy Robertson Harris, it's like, oh yeah, dude, we gotta pump the gas a little bit, make sure the engine's still revving. What's the difference? I mean, I get one player is a Pro Bowler, but they're both very experienced.
Yeah,
Ooh.
No, listen, like I
panic button.
I was until I saw Doug's quote on it. If Doug said all the other stuff, but what jumped out at me is that he's going to be an impact player for us, which means they haven't lost confidence in him. They know they need him. They're not seriously. If you're looking at the reps that Roy Robertson has had and when he's played, you start to wonder if he's even going to make the 53.
Correct.
But when Doug says he's going to be an impact player for us, that, to me, alleviates, okay, he's going to be a part of this thing. Now, it might not alleviate what you're saying about he's still got to get up to speed and got some work to do.
I think he's going to be a part of it, sure. Okay, that's fine. Like, he's made the roster.
I wasn't so sure as he's playing in the fourth quarter against the Chiefs.
I know, but I don't think you really have any other option. Like, he's a depth guy, like, for sure. But my point is he a little in the doghouse because are they happy with what he's been doing?
Well, I think
that warrants the question.
Well, I think I always think of how Doug answers these questions. So what's popping in his mind? He doesn't want to give up too much. He's got to play it kind of both sides. But when in that soundbite, which is only about 15 seconds long, after he says he's going to be an impact player, consistency he brings up. Now, and then he couches it because he says not only by Roy, but by everybody. But really, he's thinking, okay, Roy has not been consistent enough.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, is true. Roy's a guy that flashes, and he flashes sometimes like multiple times in a game, and then he doesn't. Mm-hmm. And I have no idea why that is. I mean, you would, I don't know. Does that tell you that you're not as good a player? What does it tell you if you make plays, but then you go 2 or 3 weeks without making plays?
Consistency is everything. Like, it shows that.
Are you just not locked in? Are you not playing 100%?
I don't want to.
Are you not good?
I don't want to say that, but sometimes I think you can get lucky and fall into things more. Like quarterback sack, sometimes you can fall into a quarterback sack, right? But when Josh Allen has 17.5 sacks, guess what? I think you're pretty good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When Trayvon Walker has 10 sacks, I think you're pretty good. Now, maybe you have 3 or 4 sacks. It's like, some of those maybe came on a blitz. You came off scot-free, get to the quarterback. Okay. When you get your new contract, are they going to worry about, what are you doing? What kind of sacks did he have? No. They look at the numbers. Okay, you get paid for it. But I think sometimes you have the benefit where it's like you luck into things more than the talent speaking for itself.
Yeah, if you go back 2 years ago, I think it was 2, on Josh Allen, everybody would have been preaching consistency. Mm-hmm. So if you have a lack of consistency, it doesn't necessarily make you a bad player. It's just that you got to figure out how you can impact 8 out of 10 plays rather than 2 out of 10 plays. Mm-hmm. Whatever that is. Mm-hmm. Some of that, people talk about motor for a reason in the league. And you know this, guys take plays off. Yep. So I don't know, is Roy one of those guys that maybe takes some plays off? I'm not sure. I'm not labeling him that, I'm just asking. I think he's a good enough player because he's flashed enough. They obviously saw stuff enough where they gave him a pretty decent contract. And then extended him, reworked his deal and extended him out of the last couple of years when they were moving around money. If you go back to 2022 down the stretch run, he was big. He was very important. And he had moments last year. I think I already seen him moments this year in preseason. So, my view on Roy Robertson Harris, he can be an impact player. He's a good football player. That's why, in my mind, it's alarming that he was playing so much.
Yeah.
It's just like, wow, what is going on? And some of that, I honestly interpreted that Roy Robertson Harris might be playing a lot because he might have asked to play a lot. But no, it ran through my head. I'm not saying that's what I actually thought, but it ran through my head because of the injuries.
I got
and
you.
Stuff like, hey, I want the reps because otherwise it made no sense to me while he was in some of these games so deep.
Brent, I mean, maybe, but I can't, and maybe times have changed. I can't name one player who'd go up to the coach and say, obviously, if you're getting one series, you're like, hey, coach, let me get some more. But like, I don't know any player who'd go up to the coach and be like, I know we're supposed to only go for maybe a quarter or something, coach, but I mean, I would really appreciate it if you put me out there for the entire game and the preseason. Please. I'm begging you,
That
coach.
doesn't happen?
No, Brent. Can't say it does. Can't say it's ever happened in the history of the game.
Well, like Mac Jones said, he said he wants to play every preseason. They never let him.
Yeah, because, I mean, yeah, okay. That's fine, Brent. Like, you got to say those things to sound good. But I guarantee, and for quarterbacks it's different, right? Because you want to showcase what you can do.
Yeah. And you're not going to get hit on every play.
But there's no defensive lineman out there that is going to, come out after a quarter and be like, fuming, come on, coach, you gotta keep me in there, man. I'm playing well, right? No. It's preseason. I remember, and this was my third year. Malarkey, the Coach Malarkey year. And I think our first preseason game was in New England. And we got a series. Or I think, it was a series. That was it. And I remember, all right, we got the series. I'm like, that's it? And they're like, yeah. Like, cool. So I'm cheering like Larry Hart and everything on the sidelines. But then they ended up bringing Matt Roth. You remember?
I remember that.
And then it was the last preseason game against the Rams of was that St. Louis back then? Would have been still, or
it was St. Louis.
St. Louis Rams. And I played until the fourth quarter. Like I played the entire game because now I'm on the depth, and I was dead. And yeah, I had a good game, and it helped me get a roster spot, even though I didn't think I was gonna get cut. But it helped solidify things. But I wasn't man, I think I'm getting all these reps in, Brent. No, get me out of here. I'm supposed to be part of this team already. Take me out,
That's an interesting thing. I was thinking on the sidelines this past week. I was kind of watching the Roy Robertson-Harris one, and then there were some other things. I saw Brenton Strange come out pretty early.
Yeah.
I saw some other guys come out, and I was like, is it a status thing a little bit? I wonder internally with the players. It's like, how do you not look over? It's like, well, they're in street clothes. Why am I not in street clothes? Right? It's got to be. It's
always been a status thing, but it's always been a sorority thing as well. See, this is why I was surprised because Roy Robertson Harris, who's been in the league for a while, who has essentially earned his stripes. I was surprised to see a guy like that out there.
Yeah, different than Terrell Edmonds' second.
Correct,
right?
Because
even though he's a veteran guy, or Amos, they're trying to make the team.
Yeah, because you always knew, even in preseason games when we would rotate guys in, there'd be some instances we're out there for 12 plays and you gotta deal with it. Yeah. It sucks. It's the worst, but you have to embrace it. But ideally, even in preseason, you would want to have some kind of rotation, which I think we saw the first game with the Jaguars. They kind of rotated guys in a little bit. And I remember being my first year, my second year, when you rotate guys in, it's the defensive line coach's job to know when you're getting tired, but also it's your teammates' jobs to know. So for instance, I was a defensive end. So if I saw Harvey or Mincy getting tired, I'd be like, hey, coach, do you want me to give Mincy a blow? He's looking tired.
From the sideline.
From the sideline. Yeah. It's kind of our job to help identify when dudes are getting gassed because we've all been there. We have each other's back, right? Well, when I was a rookie or even my second year and we had Mintz, Mintz wasn't coming in you'd be like, and Mintz would make eye contact and then look away he didn't see you. Yeah. And it's dude, come on. So once again, that kind of comes down to though,
I need you.
Yeah. No, dude, and especially in practice too. Practice was worse, but that's what I'm getting at though, is when you've earned, and that was Mintz, right? Because he's been around forever. So that's what it was.
Yeah.
So that's once again, that's why I was surprised with Robinson Harris, where he's supposed to be kind of the Mintz guy, where it's dude, I'm not. Come on, what are we doing?
That's funny.
But yeah, my rookie year, I've told this story too. When I was in practice, because Harvey didn't want to do, and dude, I love Derek Harvey, man. He was always cool to me. I know he gets a bad rap in Jacksonville. He was always cool to me. But I had to do, when I took over as a starter my rookie year, I had to do the first team reps, and then I had to do the scout team reps as well, because Harvey didn't want to do them. So I had to do double duty as a rookie. I'm just trying to get my bearings, and I have to give the scout team look. I'm the starter still. But I remember one time, once again, I'm shot.
Get no juice.
For whatever reason, the offense was struggling, so we had to redo it again. So I'm giving the looks who they're playing that week, and I'm shot. And I remember I turned to Mincy, and I'm just because Joe ain't gonna do anything. Joe's you're a rookie, get out there and you learn. And I turned to Mincy, I'm just I forgot. I gave him this. I'm dude, And I put up the piece like, come on, man, help me out. And yeah, once again, like we make eye contact for a second. And then I see him grab a water, squirt it in his mouth, and just kind of look away. I'm like, dude, whatever, man. But like, that's earning your stripes.
Yeah,
you know?
I guess earning stripes. That's how fights happen.
That's how fights happen sometimes too. As I'm out there for like the 14th play, just needing some air.
Yes, and not doing well.
Not doing well. No, man.
I saw something else in the game the other day. I wanted to ask you about this. So all the guys that were defensively, I didn't see this as much offensively. Trevor's on the headset. I didn't see the offensive guys do this. Defensively, I saw Devin Lloyd. I think I saw Lewican. I saw Josh Hines Allen. Mm-hmm. They were all like tracking stuff. They had pen and paper, clipboard.
We never did that.
Yeah, it reminded me of like in baseball, where, and this does happen, like if you're a starting pitcher and you're not pitching, you'll go like behind the plate and do the radar gun, or you'll count pitches or all those things. Like, I wonder, and now that you said you didn't do it, I wasn't sure. I was like, did I just miss this over the years that people weren't doing this? And on the sideline, I probably should have asked a little bit more about it, because it wouldn't have been a bad sideline hit.
Yeah.
To be like, what are these guys doing? And I think it's a Nielsen thing. It was like he wanted them engaged, but they were like tracking stuff. I mean, this day and age, you don't need to track stats or anything on paper.
What are you,
that's
PFF. Crazy. No, we're just celebrating our teammates, man. Like
so I don't know what they were tracking, but they were writing stuff down, and all of them.
No,
Josh Hines Allen, $150 million guy, wasn't immune to it.
Wow, no, we were just like celebrating, having fun. You know, I mean, honestly, like we weren't like we're just like trying to cheer our guys on. Like I remember, you remember Michael Lockley? You remember?
I remember that
he was a undrafted guy.
Okay.
Out of Florida International, Florida Atlantic, one of those two, whatever.
FIU,
yeah, whatever. Linebacker, and he always he was known for like laying the hits. Like we always loved watching him play, because like he was like a deep depth guy.
Yeah,
but like the dude was not afraid to hit people. Playing the Patriots once again, and I forgot the player who he hit, but he like hit sticked him so hard, like I think he knocked him out.
Wow. And
in doing so, got fined. Like so, then we knew it was going to happen because it was like helmet to helmet. He got like the brown envelope, $20,000,
$20,000.
Undrafted guy.
He didn't even make
$20,000. Get this though. And then the next week, I'm pretty sure he got flagged again for, I think, hitting like quarterback on a blitz, and he got fined like $10,000. The dude was in the hole from like playing football, because like you only make a couple $1,000 a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So dude was in the hole.
How does that work?
He had to pay. I don't know. We never asked him that. But
like in this, I mean, if your salary doesn't match that, you have to pay that.
I'm pretty sure he's still got to pay it. Or I mean, theoretically, I'm sure the team probably helped him out. I would hope.
I would assume.
But we used to always give him crap because and we used to love watching because he didn't care. Yeah. Like he wasn't afraid, you know. But like I remember like watching Lockley do his thing and him getting fined in like 2 preseason games, and actually like us joking around because he was in the hole. Like he was losing money by playing in the NFL.
He might have been one of the only guys. So I'm looking this guy up.
Michael Lockley.
Michael Lockley.
Yeah.
And at Florida Atlantic.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah.
He's ripped.
Oh, dude is.
Yeah. And in his professional, here's Wikipedia's professional career for Lockley. Signed by the Jags in July of 2011, so right before camp. Mm-hmm. He was fined $20,000 for a hit on Patriots receiver Taylor Price in the first preseason game.
There's another one, too, he was fined. Like a less...
It doesn't say that one.
Okay. Yeah, he was fined in 2 games.
He went to play for the Montreal Alouettes for the Canadian League for a couple of years.
Yeah, man.
And then it doesn't say. I was like, oh, watch this guy's probably doing something crazy now or something like that. But he does look ripped, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's a story... TMZ has a shot of him in his driveway, so that might not be good.
This is also the guy, too, that we actually... I can't remember if it was Gerald Smith. Somebody paid him like $100 to hold his breath under the cold, underwater in the cold tub as long as he could. And he held it for like 2 minutes. It was insane. Dude was a different kind of animal, man.
Huh.
Yeah. He was kind of like a throwback, you would call him.
So Orlando did a station back in Orlando Station did a story back in 2021 about he was doing some free training.
Okay.
With kids and stuff.
Probably
that's a nice story.
Free training he was doing?
Yeah.
I was going to say, he's probably start trying to pay off those NFL fines. Free training, dude. Start charging.
Now I want to do more.
You have a tab.
I want to find more. It's become my new thing. I want to find more on everybody that played in Jacksonville.
Literally the only dude that can honestly say that he lost money by playing in the NFL.
That is pretty wild.
Every person's dream, to put that jersey on, play underneath those lights and everything. You grew up as a kid, and you owe the NFL money.
Because you're right. Like, you only get a couple, like, for a camp, everybody gets very minimal.
Yeah, I mean,
money.
unless like you sign a new contract, that's like the roster. Like there's like certain there's escalators.
For a guy like him,
he was making the minimum.
Yeah,
like same thing was I was making like it's like $1,500 a week.
Yeah,
which is still good, but it's not
well, not good enough to pay $20,000 fines.
yeah.
That's for sure.
Yep.
Welcome back to the Brent and Austin Show, streaming on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network.
Everbank Stadium, Jaguars practicing here in just a little bit. Not there, but right next door at the Miller Electric Center. We don't want to show you what they might be doing formationally. Secrets this time of year. We do see a little more game planning this week, by the way, for the Jags against the Falcons. More of a game week as they treat it. I don't know how that will impact play or what we put into it. It's still mentally interesting to get to this last preseason game and wonder if or know that the starters are playing and that they're actually going to play the most. Because normally that last preseason game was such a throwaway. It's like, oh my gosh, do we have to play this game? Can we run the clock?
It was the worst.
Right?
Like when I was in Chicago, I remember like there's two separate like groups. There was the group that was already on the team that was preparing for week 1. And then there was our group. We kind of had to like watch film on the preseason opponent by ourselves because the coaches were already on to week 1.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It kind of sucked.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like 4 preseason game was too many. Where are you at with 3?
I'm cool with 3.
Honestly, I don't feel like I feel like the answer here is to say, oh no, just do 2. Right? But I think people want, I think most people, if you polled them, you're like, yeah, just do 2 and play 18 games, whatever. Like, I get they would say that. But if I'm being honest with myself, like, I don't think the 3's that bad. Maybe it's just because I experienced 4.
Yeah, for sure.
And you did too. But I think the 3's okay.
I think 3 is good because it's a good combination of you can get your work in if you're the starters to see what you got for week 1, but also it allows the guys more on the depth charts that are trying to make a roster. Because keep in mind, like this is what these preseason games come into play. Yeah, there's going to be guys that don't make rosters here in Jacksonville. It's like any team. But what kind of film you put out during these preseason games, another team can sign you. Because maybe they like what you do because maybe you fit their scheme better. Like, oh, wow, this guy blitzed what we want to do. Let's bring him in. I still think you have to find that balance. I think 3 games is perfect. I think 2 games, then you're getting way too risky. Then I think that the guys on the bubble don't get a chance to shine. So I think 3 games is perfect.
So I thought I saw something recently about the joint practices and why so many more people are doing joint practices and that they're going to continue to increase, especially if we lose another preseason game. And I'm not sure if I interpreted that article like, someday we'll get away from preseason games and just do joint practices. That's where the league could eventually go. Especially if they get 18 games in the regular season. Will that make up for the money lost in maybe you don't even have to do any preseason games? But I disagree with that. I think you have to.
You have to because even with joint practices, like, the intensity is going to be up there. You're going against new opponents and everything. But there's something like NFL players are creatures of habit, and you have to establish the stimulus of driving to the stadium, going in the locker room, putting your stuff on, going there for pregame warm-ups, the crowd, and granted the crowd doesn't even hold a candle what the regular season crowd's going to be, but like that still all means something when you're trying to acclimate yourself to getting in the league.
Yeah, I think there's something like so Seahawks joint practices prioritized over preseason game. I'm not a Reddit guy, but as I Google this, Reddit comes up, thoughts on replacing preseason games with joint practices.
Brent tries to figure out Reddit. This should be a good segment.
Yeah, I really have never figured it out, quite frankly.
Yep.
Do you use Reddit a lot?
Sometimes.
Do you?
Yeah, I like using Reddit for like spoilers and shows and stuff, like or like thoughts and reactions.
Yeah.
It's like a giant message board.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, I know what it is.
I'm sure we're on there. I'm sure people are liking what we do.
I actually, there was one time, I remember when Kuz would bring it up, at the old place.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, we should infiltrate this market a little bit more, which is actually the market of, like, we were going younger.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And so that's
young and hip.
A better place to be.
Yep.
So anyway, I thought it was kind of interesting, but I kind of agree with you as we're sitting here. I'm like, I think a couple of preseason games are necessary.
I think coaches would like that.
I don't know if you can just get to one. Like in high school and college, you don't have any.
Yeah.
In high school, you play like a kickoff classic for a quarter and then you go.
Yeah.
Like, why does the NFL need 4?
College, though, you still have like the
3.
spring game where you're in the stadium and everything. I mean, it's not identical to playing a real game, but like you still have that feel.
Yeah. It's become a glorified practice. See, that's what I was kind of thinking, just to put a bow on this thought, is if they did joint practices, what if we eventually got to joint practices with 2 teams for a week, and then you played a half of football inside the stadium against each team? And so that's where you would sell.
Yeah.
Like that's where so you actually get 2 teams in there. And whatever it was, 1 week you'd play for a half against starters and starters. One, it would be backup for a half. And then the next week that you do it, you'd be backup, starter.
When you do that, though, Brent, do you think, like, if you're with a team for a week, don't you feel like you're kind of nervous about how much you have to show then and everything? Like, you can kind of pick up on tendencies a little bit. I feel like if you hang out like 3 days or 2 days or whatever of hard practice in the preseason game, like, that's fine. You can't really gauge too much. I think if you're with a team for a week.
Well, I don't know if that part of the schedule would change so much. You're probably coming off whatever you'd still joint practice Wednesday, Thursday.
Okay.
Take Friday as your walkthrough day.
Okay.
And then Saturday, let's just say in this instance, do your half and half.
Okay.
But it's like this, it's planned to be. I mean, I guess in essence, it's a preseason.
So you're talking about a preseason, Brent? Is that what you're talking about?
Essence.
So they have to wear their like their real jerseys and everything, and they have music playing?
Yeah, but
a preseason game?
But I was thinking, like, if you brought multiple, it's like a trio of teams in to mix it up instead of just like one and one. So almost like it comes in pods. So let's just, for easier math, do 4 teams. So you have 8 locations.
This is what we did in high school, by the way.
Yeah, you'd have a trio of teams, right?
So,
you play one for a quarter, another for a quarter.
Correct. Yeah.
That's what I'm kind of getting at.
Yeah.
Like, could you do that instead, and would that draw people? Because now you're actually seeing the Atlanta Falcons, Miami Dolphins, Tampa Bay Bucks, and the Jags.
Yeah.
So now that rotates around, right, year by year, who's going to get the home and stuff. Mm-hmm. But might be a fascinating way to showcase the league and get working with multiple teams.
Yeah.
But not necessarily do like the 3 preseason games. Yeah. I don't know. I do think it's more than just 18-2 some 15 years down there. The bottom line is the league's going to keep evolving. And
25-1.
Yeah, 25-1.
Think about the money. Think about the bottom line.
Think about 2 different fantasy football leagues, first half and second half, right? Think about the red zone package and the DirecTV package that's now apparently $739.
Yeah.
Is that price real?
What's that?
Do you see the price going around on that?
Yeah. Well,
is the DirecTV price really that much?
I don't have DirecTV, so I couldn't tell you. But I'm sure it is. We can do the math again. We know how that worked out the first time.
I didn't know it was that much.